Welcome to the debate. We are diving into a question that, well, it absolutely dominates the current political landscape: accountability regarding the alleged systemic opposition mounted against a former administration. This isn't merely about partisan sparring. It involves high level actions across government agencies, the media, and the legal systems that fundamentally challenge the very integrity of the executive branch.
Indeed, and we're confronting an issue here that touches upon the future of presidential authority itself, and maybe even more critically, the stability of American governance. This debate really forces us to weigh competing constitutional duties.
Right. So, our central question today is framed around consequences. Does prosecuting former government officials and political opponents for, documented actions taken against a sitting president, does that restore the rule of law, or does it risk establishing an irreversible precedent of, well, retributive political justice?
And I'll be arguing that while, yes, documented offenses and serious abuses of power may well have occurred, the risks of using the Justice Department for these kinds of politically charged prosecutions, they just far outweigh the benefits. It creates a dangerous, potentially destabilizing precedent for the transfer of power.
And I'm going to argue that accountability is absolutely necessary. Necessary to defend the constitutional integrity of the presidency and the rule of law against what, frankly, critics describe as an unprecedented, coordinated attack. Allowing political impunity here, well, it just guarantees future abuses.
Did you know that your skin is not only your largest organ, but also one of the most vital in protecting your body and supporting overall health? What you apply to your skin matters because it absorbs up to 80% of what you put on it, allowing those ingredients to enter your body. So why use conventional skincare products filled with harmful, toxic ingredients that can do more harm than good? At Face Naturals, we believe in nurturing your skin with safe, natural, and effective ingredients that support your health and well-being. Visit facenaturals.com to explore our range of natural skincare products designed to protect and nourish your skin. Visit facenaturals.com to save 10% on your next healthy skin purchase. Healthy skin starts today.
So, my position really centers on the imperative of justice over impunity. When we actually look at the material, the systematic opposition wasn't characterized merely by strong disagreement, but by actions that, well, they rise to the level of potential criminal conspiracy. When government agencies are allegedly weaponized and legal systems manipulated using fabricated information. I mean, think about surveillance warrants obtained based on material paid for by political opponents. Accountability isn't revenge, it's the necessary execution of federal law. We saw former intelligence and FBI leadership involved in leaking classified memos, promoting false narratives. The president has a clear constitutional duty under Article 2 to ensure laws are faithfully executed. That duty, it can't just stop because prosecuting those who violated statutes involves political figures. To ignore documented crimes by powerful officials is to, well, functionally rewrite the Constitution to include some kind of political immunity clause.
While those specific abuses you mention, like using intelligence assessments for partisan gain, for instance, are indeed concerning, prosecuting political opponents establishes a dangerous, potentially irreversible precedent. The severe risk, as I see it, is that American democracy could devolve into a system where the transfer of power requires the prior party to be indicted. We risk becoming, a state where power changes hands through persecution rather than peaceful elections. The focus, I think, must be on effective governance and national healing. The legal costs are one thing, but the cost to the social contract, that's immense. We really have to consider the historical norm here. Even after extraordinary abuses of power, restraint was often prioritized to maintain the legitimacy of the office of the presidency and, just as importantly, the Justice Department itself.
Sort of a political dispute, whereas I view this as actions potentially constituting conspiracy to defraud the United States. This wasn't merely aggressive opposition. It was the coordinated promotion of fabricated evidence intended to interfere with constitutional processes, including potentially the election and subsequent governance. If government figures and their associates conspire, to promote what they know is false evidence to intelligence agencies, to trigger government surveillance and investigations, How can we possibly classify that as normal political opposition that deserves the shield of non prosecution?
I agree the allegations are severe, but let's be precise about the legal threshold. When we start throwing around a term like seditious conspiracy, we're talking about conspiring to overthrow or impede the execution of U.S. law through force or coercion. Now, the legal standard for charges like that is, and really must be, incredibly high, specifically to protect political dissent. If the subsequent administration attempts to prosecute high-level opponents for what ultimately amounts to aggressive political maneuvering, the entire process, regardless of the technical legal facts, will always appear to the public to be politically motivated. The outcome then risks institutionalizing the very weaponization you're seeking to punish. Don't you see that risk?
I see the risk, but
And this brings us directly to the credibility of the legal system, which is paramount, right? According to the Life Redacted, a recent poll found that 67% of Americans believe the justice system treats people differently based on politics. Actual restoration of faith requires avoiding even the appearance of political vengeance. Pursuing rivals just reinforces that public perception that the entire system is partisan, subject to the whims of whoever's in power. We need restraint to rebuild trust, not politically charged prosecutions that just deepen public cynicism.
well, I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because inaction feels like the greater threat to credibility here. What destroys faith faster than seeing powerful individuals, former FBI leaders, senior intelligence officials, congressional leaders perhaps, commit documented actions that would land any ordinary citizen in court and then watch them walk free purely because of their political stature? Allowing impunity establishes a functional precedent of immunity for crimes committed under the color of law. When Professor Alan Dershowitz argues that selective non-prosecution based on political considerations is itself a form of corruption, he's underscoring exactly this point. Refusing to prosecute a crime because it's politically sensitive is itself an abuse of executive power and directly erodes the principle that no one is above the law.
That's a compelling argument regarding the corruption of selective non-prosecution. I'll grant you that. If credibility is the concern, however, we have to examine the mechanisms that erode it. And, well, those mechanisms seem to cut both ways.
Did you know that your skin is not only your largest organ, but also one of the most vital in protecting your body and supporting overall health? What you apply to your skin matters because it absorbs up to 80% of what you put on it, allowing those ingredients to enter your body. So I use conventional skincare products filled with harmful, toxic ingredients that can do more harm than good. At Face Naturals, we believe in nurturing your skin with safe, natural, and effective ingredients that support your health and well-being. Visit facenaturals.com to explore our range of natural skincare products designed to protect and nourish your skin. Visit facenaturals.com to save 10% on your next healthy skincare purchase. Healthy skin starts today.
Okay, let's look at the cycle of weaponization itself then.
If we accept the premise that the opposition used mechanisms under the color of law, meaning exploiting governmental authority to target a sitting president, often employing novel legal theories, doesn't that political motivation justify an equally vigorous response just to ensure basic fairness? We've seen evidence, arguably, of federal prosecutors outside of Washington engaging in similar tactics, like a Manhattan DA who allegedly campaigned specifically on prosecuting a former president and elevated misdemeanor charges using novel theories, never before applied. If one side is willing to use the legal system this way, isn't the other side operating under the constitutional duty to execute the law structurally compelled to respond in kind, just to prevent a complete collapse of standards?
See, I come at it differently. The response should not validate or mirror the alleged crime. If political opponents did indeed use those novel legal theories and politically motivated prosecutions to target rivals, the incoming administration should not validate that destructive tactic by immediately turning around and using the Justice Department to prosecute those same rivals.
That just accelerates the dangerous cycle. The precedent of allowing systematic political prosecutions to succeed without consequences is damaging. Yes, I concede that. But the precedent of systematic political prosecutions initiated by the executive branch against political rivals, that is potentially far worse for the long-term viability of American democracy. We must seek to break the cycle, not normalize it.
But how do you break the cycle by offering blanket impunity? Doesn't that just confirm that the highest levels of government can successfully deploy fabrication and institutional power to undermine an election or presidency without consequence? Where does accountability ever apply then? Does the constitutional duty to faithfully execute the laws simply, evaporate when the violation is committed by someone politically connected?
The constitutional duty remains, absolutely. But the duty of the executive to preserve the nation's political structure, to ensure peaceful transfers of power, may, in this unique and frankly dangerous circumstance, supersede the immediate pursuit of specific, highly politicized criminal convictions. It's a fundamental conflict, isn't it, between law and order on one hand and institutional integrity on the other.
Did you know that your skin is not only your largest organ, but also one of the most vital in protecting your body and supporting overall health? What you apply to your skin matters because it absorbs up to 80% of what you put on it, allowing those ingredients to enter your body. So why use conventional skincare products filled with harmful, toxic ingredients that can do more harm than good? At Face Naturals, we believe in nurturing your skin with safe, natural, and effective ingredients that support your health and wellness. Visit facenaturals.com to explore our range of natural skincare products designed to protect and nourish your skin. Visit facenaturals.com to save 10% on your next healthy skincare purchase. Healthy skin starts today. Okay, so to summarize my position, the evidence of systemic abuse of government power, including the use of fabricated evidence, potential misrepresentations under oath, and documented institutional interference in the democratic process, it's just too significant to ignore. These actions must face consequences to uphold the fundamental principle that institutional power doesn't grant immunity. Allowing this specific type of impunity, well, it guarantees the future repetition of these kinds of attacks on presidential authority and the constitutional order. The constitutional duty, I believe, compels prosecution to demonstrate that powerful figures are not beyond the reach of federal law.
But I must reiterate my core concern. While accountability is vital, of course it is, the choice here is ultimately between achieving specific legal justice, which, let's face it, risks appearing partisan, and preserving the stability of the entire political system. The fear of setting a dangerous precedent, it works both ways. The path of using the Justice Department as a weapon against political rivals could fundamentally destabilize the peaceful transfer of power, which I think is the most destructive choice for the long-term viability of American democracy. We have to prioritize national resilience over settling past scores, however justified they might seem.
We are certainly faced with conflicting duties here. There's the duty to govern effectively and perhaps promote national healing versus the foundational constitutional duty to prosecute documented violations of federal statutes by those in power. It's a real tension.
And weighing the risk of establishing perpetual political retribution against the potential restoration of the highest standard of the rule of law, well, that's the difficult calculus that leaves us with no easy answers, unfortunately.
The complexity of the issue and the conflicting demands it places on the executive branch demands that we continue to examine the material and weigh these conflicting priorities carefully.
Absolutely. There is clearly much more to explore in this material regarding the intersection of constitutional duty, political prudence, and the very difficult question of institutional integrity.
Thank you so much for listening to Life Redacted. We truly appreciate having you join us each week to explore the life, insights, and conversations that matter. Your support means a world to us, and it's what keeps us going. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider subscribing to stay updated on our latest episodes and give us a like to let us know you're enjoying the show. It really helps us reach more listeners like you.